I'm talking with Connie Allen. Connie is a brother to Gregg Whitmore, who was killed in a double homicide in 2004. So it's been about 20 years. Connie, appreciate you taking some time with me today to talk about this.
Of course.
You've had, 20 years of hindsight, and I'm sure it's still painful to look back on that. But
Yes.
I appreciate you, kind of going through the details of this with me. So this happened in, from what I understand, February of 2004.
Correct.
Gregg and his girlfriend were asleep, and his ex-wife stabbed them. Is that what happened?
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So do you want to talk about, first of all, let's start with your relationship with Gregg. He was your older brother?
Yes, Gregg was 5 years older than me.
And were you
go
guys
ahead.
were you guys very close at all?
Yes, the age difference growing up was different, but our mom died when I was 16 and Gregg was 20. And so he joined the military, came home. And so we grew closer as we got older. But he was always my hero, even though I was the pain little sister.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha. But what was Gregg like, personality-wise?
The perfect example is his Army brothers. When I finally contacted them and reached out to them, all they could say was Whitmore and that stupid smile. Gregg had a smile that lit up the world. And if you ask anybody about Gregg Whitmore, the first thing they're going to say is Whitmore and a smile. He was just an amazing human and lit up a world, would do anything for anybody, was just an amazing brother, son, uncle, dad, just everything. He was an amazing human.
Is he an athletic guy?
No. He played sports in high school, loved the military. He was 82nd Airborne. So yes, he was athletic, falling from, jumping out of planes, served in Desert Storm. He was actually, his platoon was first boots on the ground at Desert Storm. He loved to hunt and fish more than anything, spent a lot of time with our dad, fishing or hunting. And then fishing really became his passion, especially with his son, when his son was older.
Okay, yeah. The reason I ask is because Alan Fulmer, the current police chief, showed me a picture of him, and he was pretty chiseled in the picture.
Yeah, that's one thing about Gregg. He could live off of Pepsi and Doritos and sunflower seeds, or could eat a gallon of ice cream and never gained a pound.
So yeah, and Alan said something similar. He just had $1 million smile, lit up a room. That was Gregg. So how long had he been divorced at the time of his death?
So numbers are really hard because it was so crazy for a while. They had separated and then he had gone back, and then things got really intense. And so he moved out, and then excuse me, I apologize. They actually, when he moved back in, the divorce had been finalized, but he was living there. It's really been so many years, but they had, the final outcome was he had only been separated from her that last time for about 5 months. And then he had just moved back into the home because the home had been awarded to him. And it was just shortly after that that the tragedy happened.
Yeah. Okay. So just walk me through the events of that night. About what time did this homicide happen?
I talked to him about 8 p.m. that night, and he was coming over to help us hang blinds in our new house that we had just built. And supposedly it was, I believe, like at 1:15 in the morning. And craziest thing is I always drove by his house whenever I went into Rigby. And that morning I had gone into Rigby, but it had snowed. And my daughter asked me, she goes, "Aren't we driving by Uncle Gregg's house this morning?" And I said, "No." And I know there was a reason why, because the crime scene tape and everything was up. And then it was about an hour later that I got the news. The police had already notified my dad, and then my dad had notified my ex-husband at that time, and then they notified me because I was actually headed to work.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how'd you find out? You get a call from the police?
No, I actually got a call from my ex-husband. He called me and told me that I was working for a trucking company, and I'd had a truck get in an accident. So I was at my desk, got a phone call. My ex-husband called me and said, "You need to come home now." I told him to leave me alone, and hung up on him. And then he called me back, goes, "I'm serious, Connie, you need to come home now." Well, then things start going through my mind. And and he's like, who's with you? And I told him my boss was there, and he goes, I need you to take the phone to him now. And I took the phone back there, and one of my other coworkers walked back, and I handed the phone to my boss, and he goes, we've got her. And he handed the phone, and he says, Connie, they found Gregg murdered. And I turned to my other coworker and started hugging her, and I said, I told you she was going to kill him. I told you on Friday night she was going to kill him. And walked back to my desk and sat and worked. And he called me back, and because I was in shock, and he called me back, and then I remembered Karen was there, and I asked about Karen, and he said Karen was gone too. So I headed home, and that's when family started to appear.
Mm. The woman who killed him, her name was Shana. What was her maiden name?
Shana Parkinson.
Parkinson. What was she like? Did you know her very well?
I introduced him.
You did. So she was a friend of yours.
I actually dated her brother for a long time, and so I got to in high school. He was a high school, boyfriend. We always joked Gregg and Shana to be together because their birthdays were the exact same day and they were the exact same age. And when Gregg came back from Desert Storm, he was on leave, wasn't sure if he was going to re-enlist or not. And I introduced him to Shana, and he decided not to re-enlist, and they got married and had 2 amazing children. And his favorite thing was gardening and canning. They did a lot of that together. At one time, he had 3 gardens, and he would take care of them, and the 2 of them would can and do different things like that. And then, unfortunately, things sour and go different directions. And unfortunately, being humans, not everybody knows how to let go the correct way.
Divorce is always a sad thing, and I don't want to get too much into the personal details of their divorce. But I gather it was a bitter divorce. What was her specific motive for killing him? Do you know that?
Okay. Can't believe I'm saying this. Gregg was a victim of domestic violence. He had been abused extremely bad by Shana, and that is why he finally got away from her. And we didn't realize how bad the abuse was until towards the end. And after the end, we found medical records and things like that. And so I really can't say what caused it. If you read some articles and court proceedings, she did have some mental illnesses along with alcohol abuse and some prescription drugs and things. And unfortunately, things just happen, and kids are involved, and emotions run high. And I think the final deciding factor was he had asked Karen to marry him on Christmas Eve. And I think that it's finally, and then it just started getting worse and worse, the 300-400 phone calls a day, the stalking, just the slashing of the tires, the kicking in of the car, terrorizing the house, the bonfire in the backyard with all of his military awards, his army uniform, all those different things. It was just leading up to horrible things.
Wow. Holy cow. But yet she didn't appear to be anything like that when you
no. So it was, now I look back, I remember the days I'd go see Gregg, and the door, he'd only peek his head out the door and stuff. And so it's one of those things that people can put a face on for other people, but behind closed doors, it's another life. And unfortunately, people only think that happens to women, but it happens to men too. And men are even more ashamed of it because they don't want anybody to know that they were, what's going on in their home because they're a man.
Yeah. Holy smokes. So obviously a very tragic thing. Do you remember how long the trial was after this incident?
Okay, so arraignment, that happened on Sunday morning. I believe arraignment was on Monday. And then court hearing. It seemed like there was always court hearings. It was the following, Dad was in the wreck in August. Yes, May 11th, the fall of May 11th of 2005, him and Shana's 40th birthday is the day the trial started. And it went until Memorial Day weekend. So like, I want to say almost 2 weeks is what it went. The verdict came back for conviction of 2 first-degree murders with enhancements. And then sentencing was, I believe, in August or September. They had to wait and do the evaluations for the sentencing, which were handed down in August.
When I was talking to Larry Anderson, he told me her sentence was 27 years to life in prison.
Yes, she goes to parole in 8 years.
How do you feel about that? The possibility of her being on parole and getting out of prison?
For her kids' sake, I don't have any complaints because it's not or the kids' fault. I don't hate her anymore. I just would like to know why she did it. The hurt's always there. I don't have any fight in me, and I'm just going to believe and trust that what's supposed to happen will happen. The hatred has moved. I don't have the hatred anymore, and we all have a journey in life, and unfortunately, it's my brother's time to go in a horrible way. And so, I had to get rid of the hate because it destroyed me. And I had to learn not to hate anymore. And so I just want to be more to help people that have ever gone through that, and especially men that suffer from domestic violence. I'm a huge domestic violence advocate for men because men don't ever get the same treatment as a woman. And so that's where I stand. You have to, and that's what my brother would want me to be. My brother would want me to do something that would make him proud and that would help and have a happy memory instead of drama and bad, because that was not him. He everything was just good in his life.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I live my life how he would. My philosophy is if everybody could smile like Gregg, the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
If you, I have I can send you a really cool picture when we get off of this, if you'd like it, with his smile.
Yeah, that'd be great. How many kids did he have?
He has 2.
And they're now
one's in Idaho. His daughter lives locally, and his son is currently stationed overseas right now. He's been deployed for the last year. He went over with our soldiers when they were deployed a year ago. I'm hoping that he'll be home soon.
Has there been any specific, I mean, obviously losing a father, a mother, a child, a family member is always a bad thing. But has there, how has this affected everyone? Is there one specific thing that you can think of that has been particularly difficult because of his death or anything like that?
Besides the trauma and stuff, but I became very sick because of his death, and because I was put on medication because I couldn't deal with it, and the side effects of the medication actually put me in a wheelchair. And I just got back again Wednesday from Tijuana for treatment. So I get to live with that the rest of my life. And so I think that haunts me, as something more than that. But we just all lost a great loss. I have 8 grandkids. 2 of them are named after him. Riker has his first name, middle Riker Gregory, and then there's Kyson Bradley. So he has 2 nephews that are named after him, and my kids will always remember their uncle and what an amazing their last trip they took to the Utah Jazz. He took them to the Utah Jazz a month before he was killed, and my kids just have those amazing memories. So everybody suffered a great loss when Gregg died. As you talked to Alan, him and Gregg were best friends since they were 5 years old.
Now, I'm interested. You said the result of this, you ended up in a wheelchair.
I did. So I was given an antidepressant to deal with the anxiety and things because after I'd seen the pictures, I couldn't sleep and different things like that. So I was put on an antidepressant that had just been put on the market, and the side effects were not put out by the drug company, and I was on it. And when I finally came off of it, I switched doctors, and I was lucky to still be alive because it wasn't actually an antidepressant. It's to treat schizophrenia. And so it turned into the side effects. I now have dystonia, tardive dyskinesia, and I went for years without being diagnosed, not being able to walk and talk, and finally found treatment 2 years ago in Tijuana that actually gave me my life back so I could walk on my own and things like that. When I left, I was in a wheelchair. Done really good for 2 years, and I just had a flare up again this last month, and I just went back down again to Tijuana, and I was in a wheelchair again when I went to Tijuana. But now I'm home and I'm good again.
So can you walk now, or still in a
Yep,
wheelchair?
I can. Yeah, nope, I can walk and stuff. They have to replace my stem cells in my blood because the medication ate all my blood cells and destroyed my blood cells.
What's the condition called again?
It's called dystonia.
Dystonia.
Dystonia. It's in the Parkinson family. Everybody carries the gene. We're seeing more and more of it now with the corona booster shots because the medication in it destroys your the gland in your brain that sends movement, your neurological system, so it controls your movements and everything, and it either paralyzes you or you tremor really bad, or you'll get a Charlie horse in your neck that will last for 3 weeks, and my neck would twist and turn and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So yeah, so it's been but you know, everything happens for a reason in life, and me having dystonia made me be more like my brother and more humbled and things like that. So everything happens for a reason, and I know that Gregg is always with us, and he never leaves our side, and every time I hear American Soldier, I know that he's not far away.
What do you miss most about him?
My big brother, my hero, that if I had a bad day, I could go to him and, you know, always be there. Or the monkey knuckles. I think I still flinch to this day from all the years of always, you know, brothers, sisters. I always would get that. I'm going to make you flinch. I'm going to make you flinch. So, you know, just Gregg's personality. He just loved everybody is what I miss the most about him. And what he could have had, watching his kids, his new grandbaby, my kids, my nieces and nephews. That's what I miss the most. What we could have had.
Do you have any interaction with Shana's family at all?
I do not, just the kids. Her mother passed away a few years ago, and last I heard, her father is being taken care of because of age and health issues. And so no, I don't really have anything to do. I keep in touch with my niece and my nephew.
Yeah, okay. But how do they feel about, you know, their mom being in prison and how this whole thing?
You know, I don't talk a lot about it. I let them come to me because I never want to. You're in a fine line because I actually was awarded half custody of them when they died. I was sharing it with their grandparents, and unfortunately, we couldn't fight anymore, so we just let them have them because we had visitation like a divorce. And then as times go on, I got a divorce. My dad was in a horrible wreck all within a few months after all that, and we kind of lost touch, you know, because they didn't want to admit. The kids were told different things and stuff like that. So I really don't know what the kids know or anything, but those kids have had a heck of a life, but they were amazing kids and grew to be amazing adults. And all I can say is their grandparents did an amazing job loving them and raising them.
It's great. Well, Connie, I appreciate this. This is
yeah. I'm sorry. I know I'm all over the board, and I apologize. There's a lot of information there. So something that I would like to just add, and I don't know if Alan said anything, but so Gregg is only my half brother. When my mom married my dad, Gregg was 5 years old, and my dad adopted Gregg. And there's no such thing as a step parent. That my dad, there's actually an article and an interview clear back archived somewhere on the internet. I watched it not too long ago that they're interviewing my dad, and my dad said, the great thing about me and Gregg is we got to choose to be father and son. We got to choose to have that. And the night that he was killed, he had left my dad's. They were planning another hunting trip to go pig hunting. And as he walked out, he said, love you, Pops. I'll see you tomorrow. And then at 8:30 that morning, my dad opened the door with 2 police officers there, and he opened the door and he says, what did she do to him now? So, wow. Yeah. And Larry Anderson is the most amazing person in the world. I think have the most respect for that man. Definitely.
He was police chief a long time.
Yes, I one of my memories is him walking through the line when we were having the viewing at the funeral. That's one thing I still remember, as I still see him standing there. So, and Jefferson County was amazing and took very good care of our family during that time, the detectives and the officers, because those were the ones that really suffered, are those guys that had to do all that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Connie. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for talking to me.